So you are all welcome to this call. Okay, so if you have your friends that are not here on this call and are supposed to be part of this call, kindly reach out to them that it is time, and we'll be kicking off anytime soon. Please note that the attendance will be dropped at intervals, so you don't even need to ask. Other important things will be dropped at intervals. So I want you to take note. From Afghanistan, Onabi, oh, you're welcome. Rafik from Kano, you're very, very much welcome. So without taking much of our time, I want to invite the facilitator for today, person of Faith, to job that shall start. So over to you, Faith.
Good morning once again. It's always an opportunity to join the call, share my knowledge and my. Please kindly confirm that you can hear me. Good morning. Good morning. Please kindly confirm you can hear me. Okay, you can hear me. Thank you very much for the confirmation. My name once again is Mbotidem Awak. I'm joining this call from Akwa Ibom, specifically in the city of Uyo. So it's always an opportunity to share my knowledge with participants like this. And I want to respectfully thank DSN for this opportunity. So without further waste of time, I'm just going to be sharing my screen. Yes. Thank you very much. I've seen that you can hear me loud and clear. So like I earlier said, without further waste of time, I'm just going to be sharing my screen. I'll just share my screen. If you're just joining us, once again, my name is Mbotidem Awak. I'm the facilitator for the Power BI track with data analysis. So it's always an opportunity, and I feel most welcome to have DSN given the opportunity to facilitate this class. For this is day 3, and the previous days we had talked about we had a little brief intro to data analytics. We moved on to the different roles in data analytics. So yesterday we delved into data cleaning, data transformation, how to clean data, how to transform data, and we saw different common data cleaning techniques. So for today, we are going to move on to a very interesting topic. So if you were here yesterday, please, I just want to see some emojis that you are consistent with your learning. So I just want to see some emojis. I love consistent people. So I just want to see some emojis that you join us yesterday. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. So moving forward, we are going to talk about data models and DAX. So I don't know if you're familiar with the term semantic model. So if I try to use both of them interchangeably, they mean the same thing. So we are going to talk briefly about data models, either data models or semantic models, or whichever that just used interchangeably. So we are going to talk about data models and DAX. So I'm going to start with giving you a definition of what data modeling is. You have been hearing of data modeling in Power BI, and you don't really know what data modeling is. Data modeling is a process of organizing the different data your business collects by identifying relationships between them, by creating relationships between them. So that is what we are going to learn today. We are going to learn how to build. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how to build data models. We are going to learn how We're going to learn how to build relationships in Power BI, and we are also going to learn how to, we're also going to delve into different data modelings. So moving forward, we are going to talk about the different types of data tables. Data tables is divided into two. We have the fact table and we also have the dimensional table. When we refer to as fact tables are basically event data. When I mean by event data, I mean like dates, like product ID, like quantity, discounts. That's what I mean by event data. They basically refer to as facts. They contain observational or event data. I love using that word a lot, event data. Facts table have informations like date, has informations like time, quantity, discount, profit, and so on. Facts table can also contain repeated values. While on the other hand, the dimensional tables contain more details about the facts table. What do I mean by that? I could simply say that the dimensional table can contain information about, let's say, products, where the customer is coming from, the location the location of the customer. It can contain information about the employees' information, the customer's location. That's what your fact table contains. So that's what your dimensional table contains. So moving forward, we're briefly going to look at, and lastly, your dimensional table contains unique values. They contain unique values. So using this diagram, I'm briefly going to explain what I mean by fact and dimensional tables in more details. When we talk of fact tables contains events, it contains dates. So I don't know if you can see my screen very clearly. This is just a chart to guide us. This is my fact table. My fact table would contain informations like date, product ID, store ID, unit, quantity, amount. They basically contain numerical information. But what I refer to as my dimensional table contains more descriptive information about the fact table. So this is my fact table for an example. I have my store here. My store would contain information about the store. It could be the store image, latitude, longitude. It could also be the store type. And we also have products. Products table are dimensional tables. So for your products table, it will contain information about your product category, your product subcategory, and so on. For your customers table, it will also contain information, which is a dimensional table. It will contain information about the customer. It could be the gender of the customer. Is it a male? Is it a female? It could also be the age of the customer, the product that customer is purchasing. It could also contain information about the segment or the location that customer is coming from. So I don't know if you have been feeling, maybe you want to, let's say for an example, you want to order something from Amazon, you want to order from all these online vendors. You would see where you give out your information. You have a question? Okay, I think I'm just going to take questions in a few minutes, but let me explain what I mean. So what I mean here is that maybe you are trying to make purchase online from Amazon. You want to buy on Amazon, and basically you have informations like to ask you fill your customer information, the ship dates, your ship mode, which particular location are you coming from. You can put there's always information for location, there's always information for the product you are trying to buy. That's mostly online. You're trying to purchase a product online. So these are all data we are collecting. We talked about data collection in our first class. So when we talk of dimensional tables. Dimensional tables refers to more details about the data in the fact table. Your fact table might contain customer ID, product ID, location ID. These IDs are repeated values in the fact table, whereas your dimensional table contains only unique value. That's what a dimensional table contains. So it's also similar to when you're trying to, let's say you're writing queries in databases. We will be coming to that, but briefly, we also have primary keys, we also have foreign keys. Your foreign keys contains repeated values, while your primary keys contains unique values. So your dimensional table is more like a unique identifier for a relationship that connects these two tables together. So you can see here that we have a line. For this line is a connection between these two tables together. You also got to see why data modeling is important. If you don't connect these two tables together, your data modeling is important for advanced calculation. It's important for you're trying to build aggregate functions. It's also good for data explorations. It makes you okay. We'll also be coming to that practically. Sorry that I'm saying a lot. So I saw a raised of hands. Okay, how can we identify a fact and dimensional table? That's a very wonderful and interesting question. So I'm just going to be picking that one question. I said earlier on that, I'll just go over that again. A fact table contains numerical information. Numerical information like your dates, it can contain information about dates. When was this product ordered? When was this product shipped? Which shipping method did you use? Which shipping mode did you use? So it contains those information. It contains you mostly you walked into a superstore, right? You go into the supermarket, you want to purchase products, right? So your products, basically those products you are buying, they would form your dimensional table. They'll form your dimensional table in the product category. Why the quantity? Are you buying 2 quantity? Are you buying 3 quantity? This basically, the quantities, the numerical data would form your fact table. And the date that you purchase this product, it will also form your fact table, because your fact table contains event information. When did this happen? While your dimensional table contains more information about the fact table. So Power BI allows us to build relationships between tables. So we are also going to see a lot of things practically. Do I still have a resting of hand? Okay, I think I've answered all the questions. Moving forward, we are going to briefly talk about star schema. We have different types of dimension. We have different types of data models, 2 types. We have the star schema and we have the snowflake schema. But we are going to be we have the star schema and snowflakes. So our knowledge, we're going to be working basically with the star schema because it's the most common type of data model for data analysts. The other type, which is the snowflakes, is just a variation of the star schema. So for the star schema, the star schema contains your facts and dimensional tables. Your star schema would always be connected to a dimensional table. So just like the name implies, star schema. So you just have a shape of a star. Your fact table is at the center and it is connected to different dimensional tables. The fact table contains repeated values. For example, I gave an example where one product can appear multiple times in multiple rows. for different customers on different dates. So a customer can purchase, let's say Milo for an example. Many customers can come in and purchase Milo. Milo would fall under the category of products, which is a dimensional table. But for the fact table will fall into the category of a date table. How many quantity did this customer purchase? So that is what is going to fall under your fact table. So the more time you spend creating reports, the more easier it will be for you to understand what we mean by fact table and dimensional table. So a star schema is mostly used for data analysts to optimize for high performance and usability. So having said that, I'm going to quickly, let's see the next slide, how to create a date table. There are different ways for you to build a date table. We have the source table, we have DAX, and we have Power Query. So you can use any of these to build a date table. We are going to be starting off with building a date table using I'm going to reference DAX. I'm also going to reference Power Query Editor. So for the source table, for the source data, the source data is your existing date in the table. When maybe, for example, the database administrator who designed the database, maybe there was a date table that comes existingly in the source of that data. So we are also going to see how to create tables, date tables using DAX. DAX here refers to data analysis expression. So you can use functions like the calendar auto functions or the calendar to build your common date table. For the calendar auto functions, returns a complete range of dates. It goes through your data models. It's going to scan. I know I'm going to be saying a lot. We'll move into the theoretical as the practical aspect. When you are trying to create a table with DAX, when you are using you use functions like the calendar auto function, or you use functions like the calendar function. Your calendar auto function has a purpose it serves. It's going to go through your data model. It's going to scan through your data model to check for the latest date. When we mean by the latest date is 2024, right? And it's also going to go through that data model and scan for the earliest date. So let's say the earliest date in that data model was, let's say, 1990. So it's going to give you the range between 1990 and 2024. So it returns a continuous range of dates based on a start and an end date. For your calendar, that is for the calendar function. Your calendar autos returns, it goes into the start, it goes into your model, it checks for your earliest date. That is using the existing model. It's going to check for the earliest date in your model and the latest date in your model. So having said that, we are also going to see how we can use Power Query to create a date table. You'll be seeing a lot of this practically. I don't do much of theory. So before we come back to relationships, I'm going to switch my view over to my Power BI editor, my Power Query editor. I have my Power Query editor window open, loud and clear. We're going to see how to create a date table. So I'm just going to go over these columns. You can see that my first columns is not descriptive. My column headers are not descriptive. Do I have a question? Moving forward, there's no question. So I'm going to start off with giving my column headers a name so they can be descriptive. I can use the drop down. You're really familiar with this for the past 2 days. I've been working with this. So I'm just going to use the column headers and make sure that descriptive. So for this table, you can see that we have the customers table. We have customer ID, we have customer name, segment. So this contains customers' information. This is your customers table. Anything that has to be with the customer, is it the customer name? Is it the customer ID? Is it the segment? So this contains customer information. And you're already familiar with when I have this location table selected, your location table is going to contain information about the location. Where is this customer coming from? But this is the location ID. This is the city, Los Angeles. We also have the state, California. We also have the postal code, and we also have the region. It could literally mean that maybe this customer was coming from either the southern region or the western region, or which region are you coming from, or which state are you coming from? Are you coming from Lagos? Are you coming from Akwa Ibom? So this definitely means these are your location's information. You have been buying online, mostly on Amazon, so you should be familiar with what I mean. So moving forward, we also have the orders table. The orders table contains numerical information. It contains information about our data, like the order date, the ship date. When was this product ordered? When was this product shipped? It also contains information about the ship mode, which ship mode was being used. I don't know. Okay, let me make mention of, maybe you're familiar with the term freight. Freight in data analysis. It means a mode of transportation. You can select, maybe you want it by air, you want it by water, you want it by road. Those are different transportation mode. So we also have the customer ID, we have the sales rep, we have the location ID, we have the product ID, sales quantity, discounts, and profits. So these are numerical information. I know you would be asking me, why do we have product ID? Why do we have customer ID? This customer ID in this column is a foreign key on the orders table. Is a foreign key. This sales rep, location ID, and product ID. These are foreign keys in this table. These are the keys that is going to link us to the customer's table here, where we have this customer ID. This customer ID is a unique identifier. It is a primary key. So there is no duplicate in this primary key. But when we come to the orders table, which forms our fact table, we are going to have, they are going to be duplicates in your data. You can see we have Edenson, so we have Los Angeles, we have, and so on. So they are going to be duplicates in your fact table. So for us to be able to link these tables together, for us to create a relationship between these tables, there must be something common. Just like we talked yesterday about merging tables. When we talk about to merge tables, for you to merge your tables together, for you to merge one table into an existing table or into a new table, there have to be something common between these tables. So I don't know if I've made justice to that. So we are going to have our product ID. On the product table, this contains product information. So my column headers are not descriptive. I'm going to go ahead to use first row as headers. We have the product ID, product category, subcategory, and the product name. So let's say you are walking into a store to buy you want to purchase a phone, right? Phone would fall under the category of, it could fall under the category of electronics. It could fall under the category of, let's say, gadgets. Yes, it will fall under the categories of gadgets. So electronics will fall under the categories of generators. So we have products. The names of the products could be, you're purchasing, let's say, Techno, you're purchasing Infinix. So your category could be Android category, we have Apple category, and we also have, is it Microsoft category, and so on. So these are your categories. And when we talk of product ID is going to be that unique identifier. There's how you go, just like each of us, we have one account number. So one account number is a unique identifier. Okay, let's say two people can be bearing work, opening an account in Zenith Bank in New York branch. 2 or 3 persons can have the same name, but the account number is different. So that account number is more like, is my primary key. That is my unique identifier. So I don't know if you have any question. We also have the sales rep table. The sales rep table contains information about the sales rep, maybe your sales representative. So we are just going to use first role as header. So I don't know if you have any questions before we proceed. I'm just going to take just few questions. The data set would be shared after the class. It's good to pay attention. This session is recorded on YouTube. You could always go ahead with that, and it will also minimize my time. We are just spending 2 hours, and 30 minutes is already far gone. Moving forward, I am confident that my data is clean, my data does not have errors, my data does not have empties. So I'm just going to go ahead to I earlier said that I think one of the organizers made a mention that the slides will be shared after the class for the slides, but you can always have access to the data set immediately after the class so you can practice. So please just pay attention. We don't have much time. Moving forward, I'm just going to click on closed and apply. So when you click on close and apply, it's going to redirect me into my Power Query editor. Yes, I just remembered something. We were supposed to create a date table. Sorry. I don't have short-term memory. Don't mind me. Sorry, we're supposed to create a date table in DAX. That's what we're supposed to do. So I'm just going to go over that. I'm going to go over to Power Query editor again. So for me to visit my Power Query editor window again, where we're supposed to create our date table in Power Query, I can simply just right-click on the data field. I can click on Edit Query. That's 2 methods of doing that. Or I can just come to the Queries option, and you see this, we have the drop-down. So I'm just going to click on Transform Data option. So when I click on Transform Data option, my Power Query editor will be open again. We want to create a date table in Power Query editor. So I'm going to simply have my new source selected. For my new source, I'm going to select blank query. So I have that selected. So this is my blank query. And I'm just going to type in this formula to build my calendar table. So I'm going to say equals to lists. So you see when I write list will pop up. So I'm just going to search for list.dates, list period dates. I can use the drop down. I have this list period date selected. I open the bracket. So you can see it's going to be like a guide. Start as date, count as number, step as duration. So I'm going to use the hashtag. Let's say, I'm going to say dates, going to reference dates, going to open my brackets. For example, let's use 2011, 05, 31st, going to add comma. Count as number. Count as numbers basically means we want to create these dates for the next 10 years. So we are going to have 635 times 10. That's for the next 10 years. Having done that, it says step as duration. So when you use step as duration, I'm going to say hashtag use duration. I'm going to open my bracket 1, 0, comma. I'm going to explain these codes. Going to add comma again. and I have my bracket is closed. So now what do I mean by duration? I'm just going to explain this. This is going to be our starting date. This is our start date, which is 2011 May 31st May. So this is our starting date. This is our date for the next 10 years. I want you to give me starting. So multiply 365 in a year times 10. So the duration here specifies the duration. This one represents the days. 0 represents the hours. 0 here represents the minutes. 0 here represents seconds. So I'm just going to, having that created, I'm just going to hit enter. I'm just going to press enter on my keyboard, and you would see that my date table here has been created as a list. Do I have questions? Okay, some people are just, if you are just joining us, good morning. We are just continuing from where we left off the previous day with data modeling and DAX. So you have seen how to create a date table from Power Query Editor. But we are not going to leave these dates this way. We have to extract it. We have to extract the year. We have to extract the month and so on. So for me to do that, I'm just going to simply have this column selected. You notice that we have a list of dates instead of a table of dates. This is a list, so you can see this is a list. So for us to correct this error, on my tab, you can see that I have convert. You can see I have convert to table. So I'm on this convert ribbon. I'm going to select table as the name suggests. So when I have that selected, convert this list to table. So I'm going to convert it to table. So this is where you go ahead to add columns in your data. You can add columns like our separator is going to be slash, so we can use custom. So let's use slash for that. Extra columns, we'll just leave it at that. So I'm going to go ahead to click OK. Okay, I think I'm having error. Let me just go over that again. Okay. So I can have this deleted. I can also use my drop down to convert these to a date data type. And I can rename my columns. I can just go ahead to rename my column to date column. So for me to extract this, I can use that's on my transform tab. I use the drop down for dates. I can extract to year. You see the year being May. Joseph. Rather, let me change that. I just have to duplicate this column. So when I have this duplicated, I can just right click. I use the drop down. I can extract to year, and you can keep duplicating. Extract it to months. You just duplicate, come to your tab and your dates column, extract it to either month, year, and so on. So you can do that by working on that. So I just wanted to show you how to create a date table using Power Query Editor. Moving forward, I'm just going to right click and click on. So I'm going to tick on untick the enable load option so that this data will not load into the Power BI desktop. So I'm just going to right click and click on closed and apply. Do I have a question? Okay, we're just looking at, yes, you need to create a date table that can be simplified easily in DAX. You get to see that as well, why we need to create a date table. I'm going to explain. We are going to see it more in DAX. So you are just showing you how to create a date table, either in Power Query Editor, but I mostly make use of the DAX functions to create my date table. So moving on, we're just going to create our date table. For us to create our date table, I'm just going to head over to my modeling tab. Before I create a date table, should I talk about relationships? Let's create a date table. I will come back to this. I'm confused. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about relationships in Power BI. I'm going to come back to create this date table. So you can see here that we have our relationship automatically created for us. This is to tell you that Power BI can detect relationships in your models, in your data set. So for you to go ahead to create, I'm going to go ahead to delete these relationships. I don't want Power BI to create a relationship for me. So I'm just going to go ahead to delete these relationships. So if your model is correct, if your data models are correct, you don't have to worry about it because your data is going to be accurate. Before I go ahead to do that, I want to tell you why data modeling is important. Data modeling helps you with advanced calculation. So for an example, you can see I have my orders table, I have my sales rep table here. So let's say for an example, we wanted to see the total number of customers that we're selling on the sales rep table. So I'm going to switch back to my report view. On my report view, what was that? Sales rep and orders. Yes, I'm going to have one of my visuals selected. For an example, let me select my cluster bar chart. I'm going to expand that with focus mode for you to have a wider view. Let me collapse this. Having done that, so I'm going to select, let's just say I want to see sales, we'll say sales. We're working with the orders table and the sales rep table. So I have my sales selected and I want to see for sales team manager. Let's see how much each of these particular sales team manager was generating. So I'm just going to reduce this a bit. If I should hover around, we'll be coming into visualization, but I want to show you why your data modeling is important. So if I should hover around, you will see that sales team manager for Alicia Cordwell generated 2 million. Let me go back to my report first of all. Let me select my card visuals. Let me select my sales. So this is the total sales for this data set. This is the total sales this supermarket has generated. Now let's see sales that each region generated. You realize that each region is having the same figure. Brittany Bold James Goodwill, Organics Manager, and Tracy Banks. So you could see here that each region is having the same figures. If you're having the same figures, this basically means that your data modeling is strong. I want to make emphasis on this. Make sure your data modeling is accurate. And this is why you are also going to see, wow, it is good to have good data modeling table. So coming back, switching back to my view, why are they all having the same? Why are they all having the same figures? This is because there is no relationship between my sales rep manager. This is my sales team manager, and this is my orders table. There is no relationship between the sales team manager and the orders table. That is why these managers are having the same figures. They're having the total figures of these sales generated from this company. So I'm just going to expand that. They're having the same total sales. This is a sum of sales generated in that supermarket or superstore. So, and these customers, this sales team, these are the different sales team managers. You can see that hovering around, this is called a tooltip in Power BI. So hovering around, they're having the same figures. Why are they having the same figures? This is because our data modeling is not, we have not built a good data model. So this is why I switch back to my view. So in case you might be asking me, why should there be a line between these two tables? If there is no line between these two tables, there is no relationships. So same goes to, sorry that I'm using this term, but we are all adults and I'm trying to be practical. So if there is no relationship between a mother and a father, let's just say two couples are coming in together. If there is no relationship between them, there will be no offspring. They cannot produce offspring, right? So basically, this is where I try to use real world experience to explain data analysis. So pardon me. So this is where it also applies. If there is no relationship between your sales team manager and your customers table, you will see that the figures are the same. So you cannot really tell, oh, how much revenue did this sales manager generated? How much revenue did this other sales manager generated? You can't really tell. So I'm just going to switch back to my view. By default, Power BI will always automatically create a relationships for you. So to save time, I will not go ahead to delete all the relationships. I will just save them. And I'm just going to create a relationship for the customer location and so on. So even if I was analyzing by location, so let's just untick for sales rep manager. You can see that my location table, there is no relationship between these. So I'm just going to switch back here. I'm going to search for location. So just look at location. Let's look at region for an example. We have 4 regions. So you definitely see I can use a table. Let's see, let me use a matrix visuals so you understand what I mean. Pardon me, I'm just going to expand that in focus mode. So for this, you can see that central region is generating the same revenue. Eastern region, all of them are having the same revenue. This is inaccurate. This is not correct. So whenever you see values like this, please recheck your data models. So we are just going to go back here to create a relationship between our models. Do I have a question? How do you get lessons for day 1 and 2? Lessons for day 1 and 2 is available on YouTube. I've answered that a couple of times. So if you are just joining us, you are welcome. So moving forward, I want to create a relationship between my orders table and my location table. So if you were in our yesterday class for Mage, so please you are going to answer this question. I won't be talking alone. I have to be interacting. This is going to be an interactive session. So for me to create a relationship between these two tables, which is the orders table and the location table, you have to tell me what is common. What is the common, what is that relating column that would enable me to create a relationship between this table? So I'm just going to be looking at the chat box for answers. I want to know that you are following me. What is that common column that can make me create a relationship between these two tables? I'm just going to be looking at the chat box. Oh God, I'm so grateful that you are following. Can you expand so we can see? This is the table view. This is the table view. I can go to my location view. So this is my location table. This is my orders table. I'm expanding. So this is where you get to see informations in your table about your data, and this is my product table. So already I've seen people giving me some nice answers. So if I was to organize who wants to be a millionaire, I would say, is that your final answer? So pardon me. So moving forward, I'm going to say that you are correct. So if that is your final answer, you are correct. So we're going to create a relationship between the location table and the orders table using the location ID. So for you to create a relationship between these two tables, I'm going to drag location ID on my location table and place on my location table on my orders ID. So we are also going to be talking about this in more details. We are going to be talking about cardinalities in relationships, and we're also going to talk about the different types of relationship we have. But before I decided to move into creating data tables, that's what we're supposed to do. I need to this one is just like a pre-knowledge, prerequisites for us to get into relationships. So I'm going to click on save. Having done that, you can see that I have a relationship created here. Before I come back to create a relationship with this sales rep table, let me switch back to my report view and let's see if the state region, if the regions will still have the same revenue. So switching back, you can see that the figures has changed. The values have changed. You could see that the Western region was generating the most revenue. So your data modeling helps you. It's essential. It helps you for advanced DAX calculation. So switching back to my model view, do I have a question? Okay, I don't have a question. Yes, the lessons for day 1 to day 2 is available on the YouTube channel. So having said that, I'm going to switch back now to my model view. So this is your model view, like we said yesterday. The model view is basically where relationships is created. For you to be able to have offspring, for you to be able to have a next generation, right? So a man, you must make sure that what happens in real life and so on. So having said that, I'm going to move on to the sales rep table. So you are going to answer the next question for the sales rep table. For me to be able to create a relationship between the orders table and the sales rep table, what is that common column between them? So I'll be looking at the comment section for your answers. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I'm very grateful. So finally, you're on the hot seat of who wants to be a millionaire. And if that's your final answer, you are correct. So you'll be going home with 10 million naira. So I'm going to simply drag. To create your relationship, you have to drag and you place it on that column, which is the sales rep column. So you would see that I'll have this pop-up. This is going to be my cardinality. We'll talk more of this in details in our class. In a few minutes, we'll come to cardinality and relationships in Power BI. So I'm just going to click on save for now. So I wanted to show you how to create relationships in Power BI. We would also come back to this. So switching back now, I want to show you how to create a date table. That's what I was supposed to show you, how to create a date table. So I'm just going to take this out. I'm just going to remove, click on remove. Going to remove this. So we're going to see how to create a date table. For you to create a date table, we have two functions in DAX that can enable you to create a date table. And those functions are what we call your calendar auto functions and your calendar function. So you also get to work with that. I won't be taking all of them because we have a lot to cover up. Also getting to learn, because it's not everything your teacher teaches. Some of them you do research, you get to expand your knowledge. I like it when people are so inquisitive. So I like it when people are so intelligent. They love asking intelligent questions. So moving forward, I don't like it when people are being spoon-fed, actually. So I'm going to move forward to, I'm just going to be working with one of the functions. We have the calendar auto functions and we have the calendar functions. So I'm going to be working with one of them. Your assessment for today is you create a date table using your calendar function. For my calendar table on my modeling tab, I need to talk about models before in relationships before I come down, okay? So for my modeling tab, I'm going to select new table on my modeling tab. Having selected my table, I'm going to give my table as, let's say, calendar. People call it date table. So I'm just going to call it a calendar table. So for a calendar table, do I have, oh God, no, yes, I'll be coming to that because I don't need these two. Let me see if, okay. I don't have a question. Please, you have the, okay, yeah, I'm very sorry that you can't have access to the data sets. I'm sorry on that behalf. You have access to the data set at most today. I'm so sorry about that. So moving forward, I'm going to start off with creating a date table. I'm start using the function called, we have two functions you can see. So whenever you try to type calendar, Power BI italicizes into action. It's trying to ask you, what are you trying to reference? It will just bring out the functions for you. So you can see here I have two functions, the calendar and the calendar auto function. Your calendar function, it returns a continuous range of dates based on a start and an end date. So you have to specify which date do you want it to start from and which date do you want it to end. So that is what your calendar function does. Having said that, I'm going to start off using my calendar auto function. And for the calendar auto function, the calendar auto function is it does it automatically. It goes into your data models. Like it's going to go into this data model I showed you. It's going to go into my data model and it's going to check for the latest dates, for an example, which was 2024. And it's going to check for, let's say, the earliest date, which was, let's say, for an example, 2021. It's going to go through that model. It's going to return the calendar date automatically. And it's going to go through that model it's going to go through our data models. It's going to search for the earliest dates. It's using your model. It's going to go through your model. I'm sorry that I'm saying this over and over again, so you have to understand me. It's going to go through either your data model or your semantic models. You can use both of them interchangeably. It's going to go through your data model and it's going to look for the earliest date. It will return the earliest date and it will return the latest date. So why the calendar function? Once you are going to, let's say, manually input your start date and your end date. So I'm using the calendar auto function. I'm going to close my bracket, but before I close my bracket, let me have that selected again. That's something I want to explain. I'm going to have my calendar auto function selected. It's not coming up. That my date table has already been created. I wanted to show you something, but I think I'm going to show you in subsequent calculations. So I'm going to switch back to my table view. Switching back to my table view, and you would see that automatically it has created my date table for me. I did not need to input manually. Start from May 31st May 2020 to, let's say, 31st May 2017. I did not need to input it manually. Please just give me a minute. Okay, pardon me. Just give me, I'm done. So I need to cross-check something. So we are starting off. Do I have questions? Okay, I don't have questions. Okay, sorry about them. I want them to be focused on attendance. When you were probably in university, so if you're a year one student, you'll be rushing for attendance, and later on, maybe you're a final year student, you'll be like, what are these people doing? So I understand the feelings. So moving forward, we are going to continue with our classes. So we have created a date table as 2014. You have seen that if I use the drop down, you are going to see as 2014 from my data model to it goes into your data models. It checks for the earliest dates and the latest date. So I've explained over and over again. So for what I want to say is this: we are going to mark this date table as a date table. So that's what we are going to do next. So for us to mark this date table as a date table, I'm just going to go ahead to on my, please just take that back up. Let me just take this down. So for me to mark this as date table, just go to your table tools. You can see a mark as date table. I'm coming to questions. Please just give me a minute. I tend to, when I'm teaching, I tend to go overboard sometimes. So if someone caught me in the middle, I can literally forget what I wanted to say. So as I was saying, I'll come to your questions later. Please just give me a minute. So for us to mark as date table, I'm going to have my mark as date table selected. And I have my mark as date table turned up. So I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to choose the column I want to mark for date table. So I'm going to have this selected. My value is validated successfully. Now, why do you mark as date table? Those are the questions you are going to ask me. It is marked as a date table to make sure that you don't have errors in that column. The column you are using to create your date table, it is marked as a date so that you don't have errors in that columns. You don't have null values in that columns. So that's why it is marked as date table. So having done that, I'm just going to select save. It also implies that your date has to be unique values. And they should contain zero null values. Like I said, that's why it is marked as a date table to ensure that your data contains zero value. So I'm going to take questions before we move ahead. So do you have a question? How do you mark your date start? I said you can, I gave that an assessment. If, for example, I won't be creating, let's say, let me just click on new table, home tab, but I won't be creating that table tools. No, not table tools. So let me go back to my reports. Let me go back to my model tab. So for new table, your calendar auto functions does not specify. I've told you that already. So I'm just going to say calendar 2. Meanwhile, I will not create. So if I'm using calendar, for an example, if I have this calendar selected, I want something to come up. Let me go back to that table. So let's just say because Power BI is case sensitive, I cannot have two calendars. Yes, I'm just going to say, let's say calendar 2. I'm going to say calendar. So if I have this selected, you can see returns a table with one column of all dates between start date and end date. You're the one that is going to impute your start date. You are the one that says start from this date, comma, and end with this date. So that is what your calendar does. But when we reference the calendar auto functions, your calendar auto functions, if I should close, okay, before I close this bracket, you could see that it returns a table with one column of dates calculated from your model automatically. This calculation is automatically, just like you have automatic vehicles and manual vehicles. So the manual way you try to input, gear and so on. So when we talk of calendar auto, it is going through your date, it goes to your model. It's going to check for the latest dates and the earliest date. You don't need to manually impute. And this physical year end month, the one in the square bracket is optional. So just go ahead to click to close your bracket. When you close your bracket, you just press enter. But I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to delete it from here. And just come back here, delete it from there. So now I have my calendar dates created. So having created my calendar dates, do I still have more questions? Yes, of course, you need to create a relationship with your date table. So let me just take questions briefly before we move on. You need to create a relationship with your date table. We will be coming to that. The date table, please. Do we need to make relationship active? Yes, we need to create. So you have to create data models first before creating a date tables. To create data models, how do I explain that? If whichever one you want to create first, when you have your data imported into Power BI, if you have to go ahead to create a relationship, you go ahead to create a relationship. So when you're done creating a relationship between this table, you can still go ahead to create a data model. What your data model does, it goes to this model. So whether there is a relationship or not, it goes to your model first of all. So you can see here that this is my date table I just created. This is my date table. And I'm going to create a relationship between this calendar table and my orders table. Because of my orders table, we have dates. So it's using the dates in this model, it's using this my date table here to create a calendar date in this table. So I hope I've answered your questions. We are going to build it now. Yes, that's what we are coming to. We are going to split it into months, into dates, and so on. So without further waste of time, I'm just going to switch back to my table view, my calendar dates. So having created the calendar date, we cannot leave this calendar date like this. It's not advisable for you to have your dates, your date and time in the same column. It will not make your query speed load faster. So I'm going to have this selected. I'm going to right click on I'm going to select new column. So the new column I want to create is going to be the year column. We want to extract the year from this table. So I'm going to go ahead to say year. For year, I'm going to reference the year. Whenever you are trying to type in your functions, Power BI Italy sends into action. So you see this FX beside. These are functions in Power BI. So I'm going to click on year. When I click on year, it's going to reference the date. So it is this date I want to reference. I'm going to say I want to reference my calendar date. I close my brackets and I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. So you can see that I have extracted my date for 2/14. You can see here I've extracted my date for 2/14. I'm going to go ahead to create a new column for my months. For my months, I'm going to say format. I'm going to use the format function for my month. Value is going to ask me for the value. For the value, I'm going to reference the calendar dates, comma. Okay, I'm going to reference my calendar dates. So when I reference my calendar dates, yes, I wanted you to see this. So the value here is going to reference my calendar dates. How do you want the format? The format is asking me, I'm going to put that in double quotes here, if I'm correct. How do you want it to be? Do you want it to be capitalized? Do you want it to be, let's say I want it to be MMM. That's what I mean by format. This is what I mean by format. So your functions helps you. You notice that when I was still working, let me take this out. You see that whichever one you're working with, it changes to blue. So I have my value changes to blue. You can see that I have my values. If I add a comma, this guides you. It's more like a guide. So even if you add a comma to this, it changes to blue for format. And these other ones are highlighted in painted black. So I can say I want it, the format is MMM. That's the format for the month. I'm just going to close it with double quotes. Since it's still in format, if I add a comma, you will see it's going to reference local name, but we don't need this. Whenever you see them in brackets, it's optional. So I'm just simply just going to close the bracket. I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. So you can see that I have January. If I use the drop down, I have April, August, and so on. If I use the drop down for this, you say I have from 214 to 210. So having said that, for the month, I'm just going to go ahead. I have this my active. I'm just going to copy this Ctrl C. Let me copy from format so I can just be pasting at once. Come here. No, let me either expand or not. Let me expand this. Going to go ahead to create new columns. The new column, the next column I want to create is going to be a quarter column. So quarter, I still have my copy active. I'm going to paste. When I have this pasted, still the same method. The format of my quarter is what we're going to take right now. So I want my quarter, let's say I want my quarter QQ. For my quarter, let's close the bracket. So for QQ, you're going to see quarter 4. If I use the drop down for my quarter, we have 11. No, this is not what I want, pardon. So I'm going to use slash, backward slash. Okay. Please, pardon me. QQ is repeating 1, 1. Rather, QQ is repeating 1, 1. So for my quarter, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to show us quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. Quarter is the format you want for yourself. So I can go ahead to say I need this using the backward slash. I can add, let's say for an example, I can add quarter and I can now add Q. This is what I want. So format is the how you want it to look like. So if I should press enter, you're going to see Q1, Q2, you can see Q1, Q2, and so on. But I don't want it in this format. I want it in Q, just Q1, Q2. So this is to tell you, format is how do you want it to look like. So you can see that your backward slash QTR is referencing this QTR. This other Q is referencing it, accounting for 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I don't want it that way. I'm just going to go ahead to remove my backward slash, and I'm just going to close this space. Just close the gap if you want to, and I'm going to press enter, and you see Q1, Q2, and so on. So this is the format I want mine to look like. It's still working on it. Yeah, so I need it in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So whichever format, that's what format is asking you. How do you want it to look like? So moving on, I still have my copy active. I'm just going to quickly create a new column. In the let's say less than 7 minutes, I'm going to give room for questions. So please let me just round this off. You're also going to ask me, why is month number important? Who will be coming to that? I'm going to reference months. For months, I'm just going to reference calendar dates. Referencing only. I'm going to reference. You see that whenever your Power Query, whenever your DAX function is not correct, you always, let's see if I can display that. You will see this error. You have an error. So I'm just going to quickly work on that. So I want to reference my calendar dates. Close my bracket, and I'm going to press enter. So for my month number is going to give me in numerical arrangement. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So for your own assessment, I give assessments a lot. You can always go ahead to use new column, create for week number, just reference, go ahead to say week number, just go ahead to do that. When you go ahead to create your week number, you're also going to see, you can also say week number, you can see week number, you can also see weekday. So if I should have maybe week number, any of them selected, so that is going to be your assessment. Go ahead to create your week number, go ahead to create your weekday. So I won't be creating that for you. I'm just going to remove that. So I'm just going to work with this. So let me take questions before I move forward. Okay, I don't have questions. Of course, there's a very process to this formula. I needed to start out with the basics. So I'm going to, I don't want to create it again. So maybe when we try to build our report, I'll be working with another formula where we can match another formula in the sense that we're going to be starting with the add column option. This is where you get to use add column. You open your bracket. So this is where we get to add all the, maybe we're working with the year, the month, the quarter. We add all of them into this formula, and automatically it's going to populate like this for us. But starting out, it's good you get the basics, so don't run away from the basics. So when we build our report, we are going to working in automatical way. So I just wanted you to get the basics. So let's move forward, please. You are going to be writing a lot of DAX functions, and some DAX functions are quite tedious. So just familiarize yourself with the basics. So moving forward, I'm going to tell you why this. Do I have the charts? The data type is, or when I told you that your Power Query editor is where all your data transformation is being done. In this, when we were the Power Query editor window, the data type for is it order stable automatically was this order stable and ship date, because it's going to look at these two columns. So the order stable and the ship date was referencing the date data types. So when we talk of data transformation, it's done in your Power Query editor window. When we talk of this other one, this is where your report is being done. This is where you view your report. So there is no cleaning, there is no data transformation here. So since we had already referenced the order date and the ship date, so we are good to go by creating our date table because it is using the right data types. So I hope I've answered your question. Moving forward, I want to tell you why we created this month number. So let's say we want to see, I'm going to use my, let's say I want to use my matrix visual. Sorry if you're lost. I presume you're just joining us. If you're just joining us, you're welcome. We're talking about data modeling. So I'm going to use my, let's say my month, and I'm going to use my sales. Let's see sales for an example. So I'm just going to ask a question. Why are the sales? I don't know if you can see. Let me try to expand. Why are we having why are we having same values for the sum of sales for each month? We are supposed to have different values for the sales. So I want to look at the chat box and I want to know who are getting me. Why are we having same values for the sales? I'm just going to look at the chat box. Okay, yeah, I understand there's no relationships between them. Yes, you are following. I love it when I ask questions. No proper data modeling that's accurate. There's no relationships between them. So now, you know that date, rather month, is sorted alphabetically. What am I saying? Yeah, we have months sorted January to December. That is your right way we should sort months, January to December. But when we created this month with this calendar date in month, when we created it, we are seeing January. Why are we having it sorted in alphabetical order? That's the question. Before I go ahead to answer that question, I want someone to help me answer that question. Why are we having it sorted in alphabetical order? I'm going to give just 2 seconds for that. So we move ahead. We have in less than, let's call it 40 minutes left. And I still haven't covered what I wanted to teach for today. No, I did not specify ascending order. I'm not writing query. I did not specify. Okay, that's just a lot of interesting remark. So I'm just, the data type is in text. No, it's not the data type. Exactly. Thank you for this answer. I love this answer. It's a very beautiful answer. Power BI is created in a default kind of setting that whenever you are trying to create a date table for your month is going to be sorted in ascending order by default. It is not sorted by you. That is just the default setting. So for you to be able to correct this month number, how do you correct this month number? That is now while I want to answer my question. If you have any input, you can add to that. So I'm just going to look at the chat box. But anyway, I'm just going to move forward. So by default, whenever you are trying to create your date table, Power BI is going to sort it for you in ascending order, where we have A comes before B, C before D, where we have it coming from April to October. This is wrong. Your month is not sorted this way. Have you ever seen April coming before August? No, of course, January will always come first because it's my month. Don't mind me. So we have January, we have February, we have March, April, and so on. So for us to sort these dates, for us to sort this month, we are going to have the month number highlighted. Please follow me on this so that you will not go and create a wrong report and come and tell me that your month is not accurate. By default, Power BI sorts them in ascending order by default. So I'm going to go ahead to have my month selected, come to my sort by column. On my sort by column, I'm going to say, don't sort it by itself. Don't sort it by your month. Like, don't sort it by yourself. I don't want it sorted by yourself. Sort it by the month number. So for the month number drop down, I'm going to reference that we have from 1 to 12. So we want it sorted by this month number. So I'm going to have my month column selected. I'm going to use the drop down for sort by column, and I'm going to select month number. So when I have this selected, no changes would be effected here. So let's go to the visuals to see if a change has been effected. So when I switch back to my visual, you can see that a change has been effected. So when you are creating your calendar table, endeavor to create a month number with it. So I don't know if you have any question. I'm just going to be moving ahead to what we have, our next slide for the day. So quickly, let me create a relationship between this table by going to my model view. For star schema, you can see that my orders table is at the center of my model. So you can see it's at the center. For me to create a relationship, I think I can just adjust it here. Take this here a bit. Anyhow you want to place it, take this here a bit. So if you can see my screen, that's okay. If you cannot see my screen, I'm just going to expand it. For me to create a relationship between this table, I'm just going to drag calendar on my dates on my calendar table and place it on my orders table. So you can see that a relationship would be created. One-to-many relationship would be coming more to this. So I'm going to save it. So having created that, my calendar's month would be sorted accordingly. So switch back to my report view, and these are the values for each of the months. So you can see practically we have created a calendar table. So you have seen how we have created a calendar table. You have seen how we have created calendar table using Power Query, how to create calendar table using DAX. We are going to talk briefly about relationships and cardinalities. Relationships are basically defined between tables through a primary and a foreign key. We have different types of relationships. We have many-to-one, and we also have one-to-many relationships. So you can see we have this asterisk here represents many, and this one here represents one. So there are many instances, rather, there are one instances of this value in, and there are many instances of this value. So I'm just going to go ahead briefly to explain that. So for my territory table, you can see that I have for territory, do I have a question? Okay, split time for dates. If you want to go ahead to split, you can do that in your Power Query editor, but it's not necessary. If you want to go ahead, you can go ahead with that, but it's not necessary. If you're working with the time data, you can always go ahead to split that. Yes, I'm going to explain that. We are going to explain many-to-one and one-to-many relationships. You can use that interchangeably. Many-to-one or one-to-many relationships. So this relationship describes instances in which you have many instances of a value in one column that are related to one unique corresponding columns. I don't do much with theory, so I'm just going to tell you that for this column, we just have one instances of country. So country might have Nigeria, it might have United States, it might have United Kingdom, it might have France, it might have Argentina, and so on. So these are just, you might be having just one instance. And on the territory where we have many instances, we might be having country repeating itself, America, America, United States, and so on. So one-to-many relationship is the most common type of directionality and is the Power BI default. So when you're automatically creating relationships, you notice that when we're creating relationships automatically using the Power BI, you notice that Power BI created by automatically, it's going to always detect a one-to-many relationship for you. One instance to one, like many instances to one instance in this column. So I'm going to switch back to the others table. So I'm going to collapse this, go to my products table. For my products table, which is my product ID, is we only have just one instance of this product ID, just one instance of each of them. Or I can just switch back to, let's say, let me use sales rep. Let's go back to my orders table so I know what is related between them. Okay, I have my sales rep table here. So my sales rep table here, we have many instances of organic, right? So if I should use this drop down, we have the drop down is not even doing justice. We have many instances. Let me just use the scroll bar. We have organic, it's still not doing justice. Let me look for we have just many repeated values of organic on our sales table. You can see organic with fit. But when we switch to the sales rep table, let me switch to the sales rep table. Because this sales rep table is what we are using to connect these two tables together, it's that common column. So you can see organic is repeating just once. Whereas on the others table, organic is repeating in more than one place. So this is more like many instances to one instances on this sales rep table. I don't know if I've made justice to that question. I don't know if I've made justice to that question. So moving forward, we have many-to-one relationship. When we talk of many-to-one relationship, I'm just going to have a common theme. I love using real-world experience. I love using practical experience. So for one-to-many relationships, so that you get the basics, and I use real-life experience. We can have one author to many books. That's just an example. So I have, for an example, I have my favorite author, let's say Chimamanda Adichie, and she's an author to many books. So one author to many books. She's an author to have of a lesson, things around your neck, purple hibiscus, and so on. So you can see that one author to many books. I don't know if you're familiar with that. We can have one lecturer to many students. That's another example. So we can have one lecturer maybe teaching, let's say maths, for an example, because one lecturer takes maths, and two, let's say you're in a particular department and we have people with different departments. So you can see one to many. They can bring two or more departments to merge together to take this particular course. So one lecturer teaching many students. I try to use real life experience. If you are still not okay with that, I'm just going to try to see how I can do that. So this one-to-many relationship or many-to-one relationship, it describes the directionality between the fact and the dimensional table. So for an example, where you have your many, so this is my fact table because this is many instances. Remember that your dimensional tables contains unique information. So for this unique information, the unique information in this country, we can, okay, let's say for an example, we have states. We have different states in, let's say, America. We have Florida, we have California, we have New Zealand, and so on and so forth. So let's say we all have New Jersey, yeah. So let's just say we have Boston, we have Chicago, and so on. So you can say that we are going to have, for this, if we had just states, one state to territory. Territory could be many instances of Chicago. I hope I've answered your question. I have 30 minutes left. So I don't know if you have question. I saw a lift of hand. Anyhow, yes, whichever real life experience you want to use. I try to use real life experience so that you remember, you understand the complexity of these terms. They are not that complex. So you try to relate it. So you can say one lecturer to many students. I'm teaching you just one tool, just one Power BI now, many students. But mostly my common and favorite example, I love using one book to many authors. Rather one author to many books. That's what I love using because I'm just a person. Or I can also say you walk into a supermarket, one customer to many products. I can walk into a supermarket, I can buy power bank, I can buy phone, I can buy generator, I can buy extension, I can buy maybe wires and so on. So one customer to many products. So that is one to many. There is no repetition of me. Like there is no duplicate. I don't know how to put it, although I'm a twin, sorry to say that. So it's not as if I'm going to, it's like one customer to many products. So I hope I've explained the technicality of one to many. I'm going to move on to the next point, which is going to be many to many relationship. So for many to many relationship, we can have a common example of many to many relationship is many countries speaking many languages. That's a very common example, many to many. So in Nigeria, we have, for example, we have people speaking English, we have people speaking, we could have people speaking English, we could have people speaking French, Hausa, and so on. And outside the country, we could have people also speaking English, just many to many languages to many countries. So in maybe let's say for US, you can have people speaking English, you can have people speaking different languages. Or I could use a typical example of many to many could be in a relationship where we say a polygamous relationship, many man to many women, something like that. Many to many, many to many. So example of why I'm going to talk about, briefly going to talk about many to many relationship. For many to many relation, it causes redundancy in your data. This is not recommended. It is not a recommended relationship. So you see that for many to many relationship, this is not recommended at all, and it does not require unique values. So you can see that it doesn't require unique values. So we will have many, this is cells and this is others table. So what connects these two tables together could be customer ID. I've seen customer ID, I've seen list price, and so on and so forth. So we could have many instances of customer's ID, and we could also have many instances of customer ID in this table. This relationship is not a recommended relationship. So, and they also do not have unique values. So this kind of relationship introduces ambiguity in your data. So it's not a recommended relationship. I hope I've done justice to that. So I'm just going to briefly talk about one-to-one relationship. And one-to-one relationship requires unique values in both tables. But the most common relationship is always one-to-one, rather one-to-one, many-to-one, or one-to-many. For one-to-one relationship, I'm just going to give you a similar example where we can have one fingerprint to one finger. So two fingers cannot have the same fingerprint. So even if I'm a twin, for example, my sister cannot have the same fingerprint. It's not possible. So one-to-one, no duplicates. They are unique values. Your two fingers cannot have the same fingerprint. So that is an example of one-to-one. So I hope I've done justice to that. If you have any question, I'm just going to take questions briefly. I want to see what you mean by that. Let me see. What did you say about? I just love to give examples. So I don't know what you mean by that. This is territory to country name. One to many. We could have. I gave an example where I talked about this. This is the most common types of relationship in Power BI. One to many. So let's say for customer table, I gave an example. We looked at it now, didn't I? For this table, look at my customers table. This sales rep column ID is what is going to enable us to reference the sales rep first order on the orders table. So for this orders table, you're going to see repetitions. You can say I have organic repeating. I have other values repeating. So let me just filter for an example. So let me just filter to, let me uncheck this. Let me filter to just few of them. So you understand what I mean? So you are also going to see for Erica Jones, Jessica Smith, Jimmy Gray. So they are repeating. These are repeating values. So they are on the many side of the table. This is on the many side of the table. I'm just going to go ahead to play all filters. But this is the others table because it's the fact table. So your fact table would be the many side. And while your dimensional table would be your one side. So for my one side of my sales rep table, you're only seeing organic repeating just once. Same goes to Steve Piepen, and same goes to Ellen Ray, Morris, Garcia, Jessica Smith. So they're repeating just once. So I don't know if I've answered your question. I'm just going to move ahead. I don't know if I've answered your question. I said that the recommended relationship in Power BI is one-to-one relationship. It is recommended because it will not make your data ambiguous. That's what I said. So I'm just going to move on. Before we move on, we're just going to do a little bit of knowledge check. Let's know you understand what we are saying. So for my knowledge check, what is the difference between a facts table and a dimensional table? I'm going to look at the chat box. Your facts table contains observational data, while dimensional table contains information about specific entities within the data. B, a fact table contains information about specific entities, while dimensional table contains information about observational data. C, there is no difference. So I'm just going to be taking questions, rather okay, yeah, you're correct. The correct answer is A. Oh, no. Is that your final answer? I should have done that. I should have confused a little. But anyway, moving forward. I'm just going to introduce you briefly to DAX calculations. Okay, almost done. So I'm just going to introduce you briefly to DAX in a few minutes so I can have a lot of time to take questions. So for DAX is a combination of functions and operators. When we talk of functions, we are common with your sum functions right from secondary school. You're common with your count function. You're common with your average function. So that's what I mean by functions. And they are used in combination with operators. Operators could be your division, which is going to look, we use it as a slash sign. We're also going to look at operations. We use the plus sign, we use the minus sign, division, multiplication, which references your hierarchy in Power BI. So these functions and operators are used to build formulas, create measures, calculated columns, and calculated tables. So we will not be dwelling much on calculated tables because you have already seen how to create a calculated table. When I created the date table, you saw how to create, that is the example of creating a calculated table. So I'm going to dwell in with the measures and I'm going to dwell in with calculated columns. That's what I want to dwell on right now. So for measures is just a summarization of your data. That's what measures refers to. And calculated columns are new columns of data which are not part of your data source. So for a compound measure references one or more measures in your data. So if you have any question, okay, you're just answering. No, the answer is, okay, is that your final answer? That's what I should have done. The correct answer is A. So please take note of that. I'm just going to make reference to this again. Your facts table contains observational. What we mean by observational simply refers to events. You are observing something. It could refer to date and so on, quantity. While your dimensional tables contain information about specific entities, it's containing information just about customers. Just give me information on the customers table. Give me information only on the location table. So it is specific. I hope I've answered your question. Not just a question. I'm trying to make clarity to that. So we are going to go ahead to view our measures, and we are going to go ahead to view our calculated columns. So I don't know if you have any question. We are going to move ahead. So in the absence of question, I'm going to start off with building my measures. Measures is a virtual calculation. I'm going to start out by saying that for me to build my measures, I'm just going to take this out. Yes, I have few minutes left, so let me just cover up measures and calculated columns briefly, and then I'll take your questions. Please, pardon me. So let me say I want to create a measure. I'm just going to, anyway, I think I would have done something, but let me quickly just leave it at that. When we'll be building our reports, I'm going to work on that. So I'm just going to right click on my others table. There are two ways of creating your measures, either on your modeling tab. You can see this option for calculation, we name the ribbon, new measures. Or you can just come right here, right click, come to the table you want to use reference the measure, and just click on new measure. So I'm just going to be taking it briefly. I have in less than 10 minutes to go. For my new measure, always endeavor to give your measure a name. So I'm just going to say revenue. For revenue, I'm going to reference the sum function. When I type in the functions, Power BI italicizes into action. I'm going to open my brackets, and it's having just one argument. This argument is telling us which column to see column name. The column name to reference, I want to reference my sum of cells. I want to reference my cells. Orders of cells. So I'm going to reference my orders of cells. I'm going to close my bracket, and I'm going to press enter on my computer. So when I have this measure created, you cannot really see this measure because this measure is a virtual calculation. So when you have this little calendar icon, you just created a measure. Of course, you're very seeing how we even created columns. So this measure is just a calculated column. Compared to this, is this calculator icon reference your measure. So when you come to the table we created, you see this summation. This summation. This is your columns. This is your calculated columns. But we'll also get to create it again. So creating my measure, measure is visual. Like you can only use your measure with a visual. You can't see your measure in the table. So I'm just going to use the drop down. Where does it disappear to? Let me go back to my report. So I'm just going to take this out quickly. I can take that out. Having this highlighted, I can come to the field pin. I can take it out from here, and I can just simply drag and drop it for my revenue, or I can just remove it from here and just stick on the icon with my field selected. So I've created a measure. You don't see measures. You only use them with visuals. You don't see your measures. So the next one I want to create another measure quickly so we can reference the compound measure. So I'm going to quickly say, let's create for profit. Let's create for profit. Profit. I'm going to explain what we mean by compound measure. So for profit, I hope I don't have profit in that table. In the others table, okay, I have profit. So it's going to, let's use it as, let's say, profit 2, because Power BI is case sensitive. You don't repeat names. So I'm going to say sum using the sum function, open my bracket, profit. I'm just going to type in profit. This will come up, the column name will come up, close my bracket, and I'm going to press enter. So you already see that we have created our measure for profits. We call it profits 2. So I'm going to quickly go ahead to create, we call it compound measures. What do we mean by compound measures? Compound measures are measures that references one or more measures. So for us to create compound measures, I'm going to reference the profit margin column. I'm going to say, let's say, I'm going to use a divide function. So I'm going to use divide, using my divide function, numerator and numerator, alternate result. This one is just alternative. So I'm going to reference my revenue. So this is my measure to reference. Remember, I created this measure revenue. This is the revenue I created. So I'm going to say comma, and it's going to take me to the next point, which is denominator. So I want to reference my profit column. So I reference my profit. For my profit, I'm going to, this is alternative. So I'm just going to close the bracket. When I close the bracket, I'm going to press enter. And you're going to see that I've created my profit margin column, which is called a compound measure. I know I have questions. Let me just round this up quickly. I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to input my profit measure. So for my profit measure, this is going to be formatted in percentage. So I'm going to format, when you're trying to create your profit margin, I'm going to format it in percentage. So when that is formatted in percentage, you're going to see my profit measure. Okay, why is it called no, we're not doing, when you talk of queries, I know you actually delved them into queries, which is next to query. We are not referencing next to query. I'm coming to something. I think I didn't do that correctly. I'm going to reference profits, revenue. So let me quickly do that. Let me change it. That's not correct. Okay, yes. So this is my profit margin. My profit margin is basically going to be my it's going to be my revenue. If I'm using the divide function, I'm going to reference my revenue and my profit. So having said that, the next thing we are going to look at, we want to quickly look at calculated columns. You are trying to take me to, you use the word nested. Nested is using nested subqueries. So you're trying to take me to a SQL language. We are not delving with SQL. We are talking with Power BI. So I'm going to quickly go to, I want to create a calculated table. I want to create a calculated column rather, not table. We have created a calculated table already. So I'm just going to right click. Should I right click or should I come to the view tab? Whichever one works. Just come to the view. I wanted to create a quick measure as well. I wanted to create, if time permits, I'm going to create a quick measure. So for calculated columns are the columns you would see. Calculated columns, you can see calculated columns, but you cannot see measures. Measures are not part of your data source. I don't know how to explain. They don't store it in the memory, only existing for the time of this calculation. It's not stored in your memory, but a calculated column is stored in your memory. So you're going to go ahead to create a calculated column by giving it a name. So for calculated columns, I'm going to quickly say, for example, if we say we wanted to create revenue, I've created revenue already. I'm looking at, so for a calculated column, I can go ahead to say, if you have a question, please, what's the question? Where's the things I created? Can you see them? I'm visualizing it now. You can't see it because I'm visualizing. I told you cannot see a calculated column because rather you cannot see a measure because a measure is nested. Rather, a measure is a virtual calculations of your data, so you cannot see a measure. So let's go ahead to create a column. Let's go ahead to create a column quickly. So for me to create a column, I can just say, I'm looking for an easy column to create, I'm thinking. Let's create a column. I can say for column, I can say, let's create column. Let's create net profits. Just thinking of what to create. Net profit. So for net profits, I'm going to reference my orders table. I'm going to use the divide function. I'm going to reference my orders table. Using the divide function, I'm going to ask for my denominator and I'm going to be asked for my denominator. So for my denominator, for me to be able to create in its profit, I'm going to reference my order sales, order sales. I'm going to referencing my order sales. I'm going to say open my bracket. I'm going to say 1 minus, because I'm trying to get net profit, 1 minus orders of discount. I'm going to close my bracket and I'm going to press enter on my keyboard. So having done that, I'm going to go back to my table and you're going to see for my net profit. So this is my net profit. This is my net profit. That's the formula. So I can just have this. So you can see, I said orders of sales, multiply it by 1 minus discount. So 1 minus this discount. So you have seen my orders of sales, which is my net profit. So I'm going to be taking questions in a few minutes. Oh, I wanted to show you how to perform quick measures. That's also going to be your assessment on your view tab, rather. I'm going to show you how to do that quickly on your modeling tab. Just have your quick measures selected. So they're going to ask you suggestion. So what do you want to calculate by? Let's say we want to calculate, I don't need aggregate. Let's say I want to use a mathematical operation. I'm going to select addition. So you're going to add your base value. You're going to select each of your base value. What do you want to add? And they're going to also ask you value to add. So if I was calculating for mine, let's say I wanted to do a division. Let me use division. So if I wanted to do division, numerator, where I can use the profits, I can just go ahead to add profits. I can search for profits quickly. I'll just add profits and I'll just add order of sales quickly. So I'm just going to add order of sales. So when I click add, you're going to see that my quick measure has been generated. So like I said, I won't be doing that. So I'm just going to take this out. I won't be doing that. I'm just going to collapse it. So I said that I'm just going to do a quick summary about my classes. So then I'll take questions in just a minute. I said that for your revenue and your measures and your columns, your calculated columns is something you can see. It's going to be in your virtual table. This was not part of our data source. As you can see, it did not form in existing data. So you can go ahead to create calculated columns in your table. So you can also see that for measures, you cannot see measures. So even if I should click on measures, there is no measure in this table. You don't have, it's not something you see. Your measure is just a summarization of your figure. It can only be used with a visual. So you can only see it with applying it to a visuals. Unlike the calculated table we created, which was the net profit, switching to my table view, you can see that you can see net profit. But it's always advisable that you create measures so that your data modeling load time would not be too long. Let's see the questions to take. I try to keep to time, so let me just take questions. What I explain by create new measure and when to create new columns, I will not specifically go into more details for that. Whichever one you want to work with. Like for this net discount, for this net, I just wanted to create a calculated column so that you would see how a calculated column looks like. It's necessary that you create a calculated column with your calendar tables. It's necessary you create your month table, your year table, and so on, your year, month, and so on. But when we talk of measures, let's say you just want to see, let's say, summarization of your data. You don't really want to create a model. I can just say, okay, let me see the region that is just having for this profit margin. So I can just go ahead to select, let's say, which region, where do I have state? Because state is just 4 rows. So I can just go ahead to visualize. Oh, because this is not this. So let me change this. I have this visual selected. So let me change it to a matrix visuals. I'm going to have my state selected. So you can see that this is the profit percentage each of these states is contributing. It's not a must that when it comes to time intelligence function, it is advised that you create your calculated tables. But when you just want to, you need just summarization of your data. There is no point of you going ahead to create a date. There's no point of you going ahead to create a measure. So measures are just summarization of your data. So I hope I've answered your questions. I'm just going to be looking at it. I should explain when to create a new measure and when to, I've explained this already, that your columns requires date. So when you're creating your date table, you need columns for that. So when you need just to summarize that data, you need a measure for that. Sorry that I'm too fast. Pardon me. I tend to, talk overboard. You said something about, please, this can be attained to you, Gideon. I can attend to your message on the Telegram group. You said something about, there's something which means measures are not really necessary. Okay, I wouldn't say that. Measures are necessary because I cannot be going ahead to be creating calculated tables. For an example, I cannot be creating, where is the other table? I cannot be creating calculated tables. I keep creating columns, columns, columns. It's going to make this data, who was the one that talked about data loading time yesterday? I've forgotten his name. So it's going to make this data, your stakeholder could be telling you that this data is taking too long to load. They could be complaining that your data is taking too long to load. Already that the fact table is so massive, it's taking most of the storage space, and you're still trying to create new columns, keep creating new columns, so which is not actually quite advisable, except in cases where you need new columns, like in cases where you need columns like your calendar table, whichever one you work for, except your system is able to load at that fast, you are okay. You can download Power BI by going to your Microsoft Store. Don't you have Microsoft Store? It could depend which operating system are you making use of. If you are using Apple, I think you will need a virtual. They always talk about virtual machine for that. We've always been hearing of that. I don't know the kind of system you are using. What did I click to get calculated columns? There are ways of doing that. On my table view, these are common questions. Just right click, you see new measures, new column. Either you come to your modeling tab, you can also see new measures, new table. So I don't know if that's all the questions. I think I can call it a day. Of course, just go to Microsoft Store. Exactly, to reduce complexity. Just go to Microsoft Store on your computer. You have a question asked in less than 5 minutes, I'll be leaving. So if you just go to Microsoft Store on your computer and you're going to see Power BI Desktop. If you cannot see Power BI Desktop, please just go to your down. I think I'm just going to share it on the Telegram group. I'll just share it on the Telegram group for people. I'm gonna hear someone having issues with downloading Power BI, except you are using an Apple laptop. The data sets would be available to you. I don't understand your question. How do I create table? It's showing failed maybe because of your network connectivity. I think it's going to show failed. Maybe your network is not really strong. So pardon me. You can also go to, I think I'm going to just to rectify this issue, I'm just going to drop the link so you can go ahead to download it manually. But you always have to be downloading the raw files whenever there's a new update. I don't know how to create those tables. Which tables in particular? Which tables? Is it the data modeling table? When you have, oh my God, when you have your data imported into Power BI, except you're just joining the class for the first time, I said that when you have data imported into Power BI, you are just going to go ahead, clean your data. But when you're done cleaning your data in Power Query Editor, you're going to click on Closed and Applied. When you click on Closed and Applied, you come to the model view. It is the model view that you create relationships between tables. So if we did not create this relationship, you would see it that rows that we are having. Where is that visuals? For these visuals will basically give us the same value. So I hope I've answered your questions. Link on Telegram group. Oh, you just joined the class. So a summary of today's class. Say I'm leaving by 5 minutes past 1. I already have my time spent. So summary of today's class is I'm going to be fast as possible. So I'm just going to add extra 5 minutes to that. So I'm leaving by 5:10. I'm just going to go quickly to this over again. Quickly, like I said, very quick. In less than 3 seconds, I'll be done. I work with time a lot. So we were talking about the data model and that. And I talk about data
Hello,
model.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Howard. It has been an awesome session, and then your details I highly appreciated. Okay, so maybe because of our time, I would like us to stop the class now. Others who needs to ask other questions can always do that on our Telegram page. So the link to the Telegram group has been dropped severally on this chat. So you can pick it up. If you are not yet on the group, please join. Just need to write the code in the class now so that we can accommodate other stuff. Okay, so thank you very much, Howard. Please, everyone on this call, I want you to celebrate Howard with with your favorite emoji. She has done very well. So our work as the participant celebrates you, please kindly return the host right back to me or to so that I can yeah. Okay, so the attendance is very important. So you got to do well to feed the attendance. Tomorrow is another day. Uh, Same time, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow. Please do well to join. If you have some of your friends that are supposed to be part of this, please invite them to be part of it. So thank you everyone for joining to this section. Conversation continues on the Telegram group. Take care of yourself and have a fulfilled day. Bye.